Now, where did I put it? Here it is. Welcome to the Toolbox, where we discuss the tools we utilize every day. Yours to use or toss. It's up to you. But I hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to Tools for the Toolbox. I am Chance Burles, as you know, and I have another fantastic guest. This is my first return guest, Mr. Corey Hatt. If you don't know who he is, go back to episode 18 of season 1, and you can get his backstory, and we talked about social media and how you can utilize that as a great tool. But what we're going to get into today is something really fascinating, I think. And I've been thinking about this for the last little while, and I'm going to start off with a quote, because this is awesome. And it goes like this, and I quote, "Objective judgment now at this very moment. Unselfish action now at this very moment. Willing acceptance now at this very moment of all external events, and that's all you need." Unquote. That quote comes from Marcus Aurelius. And what I read from that is that an action, and I take this back to military training, is that action is better than no action, right? If you have a choice between bad options, pick one and go, and just then see what happens, because anything beyond that is a conjecture, and outside of it doesn't matter. What do you got for me?
Well, I was just thinking, that's a great quote to start off this conversation, and Marcus Aurelius is really fitting, and there's so many good quotes that you could talk about. One that really comes to my mind would be, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. And that really ties into what you're talking about with actions, and then even deeper you talk about, like, what do we all ascribe to? And in the Canadian Forces, we all look up to those pipe hitters down range out the farm. They go by the facta non verba, so deeds not words. It's very meaningful and impactful, where you let your actions speak for themselves, and in fact they ripple and do create other actions and reactions. So really, actions are so telling and important, and really that drives part of the mission, with Mad Hatter Industries, and the same thing that all our veterans are doing in the community, the entrepreneurs, this veteran renaissance. It's all about the actions that we do to help others and ourselves, and that's really a key thing to go off with that quote that you started with. So, all the external events that are outside your control, all you need to know is that you make that example with the actions that you partake in every day, and the decisions you make, positive or negative. The decision to react positively is in your own control, and how you let things affect you outside of your control, all you can focus on is what you can do.
Yeah, 100%. And this is, it actually leads right into my first point here. So anybody that's ever played a role-playing game online, or played any D&D or spell-based thing, fantasy, imaginary kind of deal, knows of something called an area of influence. So, like, what you do within a tabletop board game or in an RPG is that the character's actions drive the story. So whatever I do affects the dungeon master or the campaign manager or whoever is actually running the game. It affects them to then change the story. So if I just kill some random NPC who happened to have knowledge that I needed to get through my quest, well, I just killed that guy and I don't have that information anymore, right? So my actions drive what happens, because I can't get that information anymore. But when you take it into the real world, your actions affect hundreds of people throughout a day. I mean, if you think about the minor interactions that you have, you walk into a store, you smile at somebody because they say, hey, you wave, you drive through traffic, you do all these things. You're driving the story of your life, but you're interacting with other people's stories throughout your life and theirs. And just the ability to act, I love facta non verba. It's such a great great motto.
Yeah, the quiet professionals. It's
Right?
something we should all look to be.
Yeah, and it's all about just getting the work done, right? It doesn't. There's no emotion to it. There's no big thought process or like, oh my God, well this guy's gonna think that if I do these things and blah blah. It doesn't matter, right? It's just okay. We need to go here. We need to get into the building. We need to take this person and then leave. Now what do we do? Oh, okay. Well, if we go in and people start shooting, well then we do this. Oh, well if nobody shoots, then we do this. If like, it's just about the work, and the work is so important. That especially what you do with MHI and like just your general community-based initiatives is that you're building that community one person at a time, right? So how do you get others that aren't like directly involved
But
to get involved?
it's almost
to buy
like an
into it?
insurgent kind of warfare, isn't it? It's through direct or indirect actions that you take that influence others in a positive aspect. So by being the example, first and foremost, holding the high level of integrity to the actions that you do yourself each day. Mental health is different to everybody. What makes them happy is not going to be the same to everyone. Like, not everyone's going to love amazing motorcycles, riding machines. It could be riding horses, it could be hunting, but doing some things for yourself, taking the time for yourself. To help others, you have to really focus on what it is that you need to do to be healthy. It isn't always about sacrificing all the time. Sometimes that actually makes things worse. You can't get out of bed in the morning because you're just too burnt out and you're not recognizing those precursors. Those are issues, right? And a lot of the things that we try to do are ascribing healthy lifestyles, but within reason. Maybe we take things a little bit to the extreme with some of the challenges. We have a few 76-kilometer veterans that hit that mark just a couple weeks ago. And then there's always how much weight can you put in your rucksack challenge, and going one extra mile or one extra minute in the WOD, or just not submitting, right? But it's all about understanding what you need to do in your own life to take those actions, to be accountable, let those actions speak for yourself, and that integrity seeps through, and it does kind of affect others. The way we work on our mental health also is by spreading that message, not just embodying it, but also subtly. There's different messages with each shirt design we do, different themes. Sometimes they raise questions or invoke different ideas, but that's what it's all about. There's both subtle and direct and indirect influences with all the same purpose, which is to help people find their own understanding of what's needed for their recovery and help. And professional help is always something we advocate for, but unlocking each person's own adventure, understanding what makes them truly happy, is really the goal behind where we ascribe or aspire to get to. And originally, this was an evolvement. We started as simply suicide mitigation, avoiding suicide in our community, expanding that slowly it expanded beyond just members in the military community and frontline to holistic to everyone in the community. Like, we just wrapped up a really heavy video today with my videographer did something with a rider that had been in a horrible accident last year. Going through his story it's going to be probably one of the best videos we've ever done yet. But it's just, there's so many stories to tell, and getting people to talk about the experiences they've been through really helps break down those barriers for others and helps them realize that they're not alone. And it is important to speak and get those things that you've been through, those dark moments, to talk about it, because there are others that may not be willing to take the right steps that are needed to help get them the help they need and help themselves. They need to take that path through the door. We can show them the door, but they're going to have to be the ones that walk through it. So that's basically the overall way to get to it, is not by just your actions, both directly and indirectly influencing, but always ensuring that you speak and walk the talk. So the actions first and foremost.
100%. I was actually just at jiu-jitsu this morning, and I got a good workout in. It was great. And I was talking with some of the boys afterwards, and one of the things we were talking about, we had just done a roll-a-thon last week.
Yeah.
So we had all the clubs together, and we were just rolling it out, having a blast. Did I think it was a couple hours worth of just straight rolling. And he was like, "Oh yeah, did you see so-and-so there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I wanted to get a roll in with him, but I didn't get a chance." And he's like, "Oh, he's such a great dude. Just one of those people that shows up and he's just happy to be there, right? He's not trying to win anything. He's not trying to prove himself, not trying to rip it. Yeah. He just shows up and he's like, 'Hey, cool, look how many people there are. This is awesome.' And he just gets to it and having fun, right? And it's that type of attitude. You just come into a situation and say, 'I'm happy I'm here. What are we doing?' Right? Just figure it out. And it's in that those little moments, right? Those little interactions that other people see without knowing you. Right, so they see somebody doing the 76-kilometer thing, and they're like, "Oh my god, I could never do 76 kilometers." And like, you and I both know that if you train, if you work at it, you can. It's not going to happen tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it already inspires people too. Once they see that it can be done, there'll be others to do it.
Exactly, and that's what happened. Last year at the Walk for Veterans, we had John and them did, I think it was 50 or I think it was 50 last year, and then this year they said they were doing 76, and then there was another team doing 76, and it was just like, sweet. We had dudes climbing mountains and stuff. It was insane. But it's like you said, it's those actions. It's the build up of one person does something, and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, that's actually possible." Okay, cool.
And then community, and that's similar, kind of like you think of some brands out there like Arrowhead that you wear. They're leading in terms of what they do, the actions for others, what they've started with the Coffee with Comrades. It's really good to see veterans stepping up, setting the example, doing those things. And it's different communities and like-minded individuals. Like, maybe not everyone's a veteran that has those issues that they deal with, but certainly, like, if you gravitate towards jiu-jitsu, there's people that you can speak with about your experiences and relate to others. And mental health isn't something that's unique to veterans and first responders. I think we have a lot to share in that community in terms of how we deal with things. That there is a lot of mental resiliency that's drilled into us through basic training and onwards, especially overseas. When you go through those experiences that are superhuman, abnormal type events that typically wouldn't be something you'd see. You surprise yourself at how long you can go and how hard. And then the hard part is stopping when you get back and resetting and finding that new norm, which a lot of people don't do. They keep spinning that up and going down different paths. But going back to jiu-jitsu, like, that is a great outlet. So is motorcycling. And, I kind of gravitate towards a lot of different things and shooting. But getting back on the mats is a big thing, and for me, I just recently started about a month and a half ago, so we'll have to get you over here next time you're down for another Walk for the Wounded event or Warrior Adventures. We'll get you over to Cal Samard and get in the gi and rolling. It's certainly it's a language that everyone understands that does jiu-jitsu, like the benefits of it, and it's just a positive community. Like, the most deadly people are probably the most down-to-earth, pleasant, and easygoing people until you piss them off. But just a positive community.
Not only that, but like, there's a quote, I don't remember who said it, but it was like, only soldiers see the end of war, and those who fight most vigorously for peace are those who know what war's like. Right? None of us want to fight, but we're all ready for it. If shit goes down, we're going to be prepared, and we're going to be throwing everything we got at you. But I don't want to just wander around beating the shit out of people. that's not a good time for anybody.
Yeah.
And especially in a combat zone, right? Like, it doesn't affect the mission correctly if all we're doing is shooting everyone we see. That doesn't help the mission. Yeah, that kind of happened
in the beginning, but and again, experience, now that we're a little bit older and more wise, you can kind of see things through to the end versus before. Maybe we were younger, we just want to kick some ass and go to war and be utilized. We're this tool that had been honed. You wanted to perfect your craft and then test yourself and your skills. to see how you'd basically perform in combat. And once that happens, and you don't realize what's on the other side, and then all those things that happen afterwards. But those are the things you hope to protect from a future generation. You just hope they don't get too soft, and that's the importance of that warrior in the garden mentality. You have to be ready, but you also have to be at peace. And to see the end game, it's a lot harder to see the full picture from beginning to end versus when we were younger, we were just looking at one piece, just getting over there and getting into it.
Yeah, exactly. You want to do, well, you really want to do your job, right? You've been trained for multiple years of just like, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to see. This is what you're going to experience. And you're getting there. You're just like, let me see it. Let me actually see it. And, you know, jiu-jitsu is such a great allegory for combat sports in general, right? Like if you take karate and you go to tournaments, if you do Muay Thai and you do tournaments, if you do jiu-jitsu tournaments, if you do MMA, whatever, you're testing your capability, your stress capability. And I was talking to someone earlier today about this, is that stress is a muscle, just like anything else. And it has to be worked and it has to be trained correctly. Because in a stressful environment, you might be able to, you know, that mother, the old story of the mother lifting a car off their child or whatever in a moment of stress. That's possible. Are you going to be able to pull that off every day? All the time? No, not unless you train for it for years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
But the but the reaction is still there, and you have to actually train that down so that you can think during those stressful times without just, you know, I mean, if I was overseas and we started getting shot at, and I just went into this fucking blind rage and charged the enemy, like, that doesn't help anybody.
It's happened.
And it's happened. But that, again, this is why we train so hard. That's why we try and work that muscle to such a degree so that it doesn't happen. Even, you know, and even then we still can't win all those battles. And I think as you said earlier, everybody's path is different, right? Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's starting place is different. And this is another one of the points that I had today was that if right now, or if I look at myself 10 years ago, I was not the man I am today. I did not have the experience, I did not have the capability, and I did not have the skill set to be able to do what I'm doing right now 10 years ago. But the only reason that I'm able to do what I'm doing right now is because of all of those experiences along the way. And most of those experiences were not fun. But I had to push through them. I had to develop the skill set to be able to manage that. And I had help. I had my therapist, I had the horses, I had all you guys and my buddies and people who were supporting me and trying to develop me, and my wife, who was just an absolute rock. It allowed me to grow and develop, and then now, because of where I am, I can expand my bubble. So like in the midst of it, when we're dealing with trauma, when we're dealing with pain and anguish and PTSD especially, we need to put that circle back down to us, right? And just work on yourself so that you're healthy. Once you're healthy, that circle opens up a little bit.
Yeah, you could say it's like a forge. It's forged you. Those experiences have maybe felt at times like it was going to tear you apart, but really what it's done is compressed you like a steel, and out comes a useful tool for the toolbox, you could say.
Exactly.
But it's definitely like that influence and those ripple effects. It's really important, even talking about that brings to the point of mentors and like-minded peers, people that you associate with, really does impact your own outcomes and thoughts and feelings. So it's really important to keep that in mind on who you keep close and the reactions and actions from those people that are close to you, because that's definitely part of it for sure. And you definitely want to continue developing. You got to be constantly, maybe not staying in the fire all the time, but you want a little bit of stress and pressure. If there's a crack or chink in the armor, goes back in the forge and it's made stronger. It's just bent back into place, or maybe something's added that you didn't know was needed, and then all of a sudden once it comes into place, it really sets it apart, doesn't it? It's different. And then it really is something that's an accomplishment too once it's been through. And that's the key, is to just keep bashing on, keep that forge going. And although it might seem tough in that 100th hit, there's no crack in the rock after that 101 hit, or the last one that creates that breakthrough. It's not that reaction from that last one. It's all those consistent actions that have struck that hammer into place, that have forged and evolved into what the outcome ultimately, hopefully it'd be something that's positive and something that you're proud of. In the end, you know, the actions that what you've set forth in your life are really going to speak louder than a lot of the words that you've made. And really that's what we're accountable for each day, is the actions. And at the end of our life, what we're going to look back to on what we've left in terms of a legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, this is, as you said, in terms of like relationships are critical, right? If you're surrounded by people that don't want you to change, that don't want to evolve themselves, that don't want to get better, then you will fall into that realm. And I was talking about, actually, while we were doing jiu-jitsu, I was talking about a stress reaction, is that, you know, when you go into high levels of stress and your body is peaked and you're in a fight or flight survival, you will fall to the level of your training.
I love that quote.
And
that's so good.
It's so awesome, right? But it's in relationships as well. And that if you're under a really, really stressful time in a relationship, you will fall to the base level of communication that you have, or the base level of empathy that you have, or like, and if you don't train those, you don't work those, then when shit hits the fan, like if you get into a major fight with your wife and you don't have the communication skills to actually engage them properly, what happens? Fucking, it gets crazy. People start you're yelling and people and slamming doors. And
you wouldn't have got good communication skills, that can still happen. But yeah, you're right.
Oh, absolutely.
I never thought about that. That's a great analogy.
It's that skill set, right? And
yeah.
when you surrender, there's also that quote was like, never be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
But I'm in agreement with that for the most part, because yes, you want to always challenge yourself. You want to be around people, like you said earlier about, you know, working out, where there might be that one guy that does that extra mile or that extra minute in his workout of the day, and that's great, because you want that person around you so they can push you to be 1% better every day. But that's also how blades are made, as we were talking, right? As you're hitting it, you're at 1%. Ding, 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 ding. Every time you hit that knife with the hammer, or that whatever it is you're making with that hammer, you're making it just a little bit better. Just a little bit better. You throw it in the forge again, come back out, make it a little bit better.
Yeah, it's not just hammering it. You need to fire it. You need to cool it, put it in the water, and then repeat the process. And
exactly.
You know what? I think a lot into that point where you said, you know, it's not just about being the smartest person in the room, but also taking risks. You should do things that scare you once in a while, with safety considered. But for example, the free fall course that I signed up for, I'm doing next year, is always something that's been on my list. It terrifies me. But after talking enough of the guys from the squadron and different influences, old jumpers, ex-airborne commando folks, it's really something that I've always wanted to do, and it just lines up. But if you don't take risks and look into things, then you'd be stuck, kind of never evolving. You'd never really change, would you? So it's really about, maybe it's not something so literal, it's something different for each and every person. It's just seeking challenges that will basically develop and continue to help you change and work on yourself.
Yeah, I've recently started thinking of my circles as a Venn diagram. So instead of like me within the center, and then there's just one circle around me of, you know, my peers group and the people that I kind of hang around with, I started thinking about it as more of as a Venn diagram, where I have a circle of mentors, and then I have a circle of peers, and I have a circle of, for lack of a better term, like students, right? I have the people that I'm trying to teach and develop, and they're mentees, I guess, that I'm trying to mentor. That also mixes with people that I'm being mentored by, and my peers, and then my peers are mixing with the people that I am being mentored by, and so on and so forth. So I have this constant shifting of movement between my peer group, the people that I'm teaching stuff to, and the people that I'm learning from, all at the same time, and it's constantly flowing and moving.
Almost like an OODA loop, but it's also probably interlapping into different factors.
Yes.
Where maybe you're teaching something, and then they teach you back, and it goes into like
exactly
that loop, which is that's a really cool analogy, and I think that'd be a fitting diagram to put on your website as you start publishing these podcasts, just for illustration purposes. I think that's really cool.
That's a great idea. I'm going to do that. But that I really I'm glad you brought it up, because the relationship portion of that is so important. And as we were talking earlier, I was saying that there's certain times in life you might only have one opportunity to affect change between somebody, right? So the example I used earlier was I was in traffic and a dude cut me off, and I got really upset and I honked my horn, I gave him the finger, and I said fuck blah blah blah, right? And so that
Toronto?
Interaction with that no, I was in Edmonton, so
it happened
kind of although I've done that many times in Toronto, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
And I remember I was thinking about it, and I was like, that might be the only interaction I have with that person ever in my entire life. We might live in the same city for 30, 40 years together. I might never see that person again. And that's the only interaction I'm going to have with that person. So I was like, how do I think about that differently? How do I, in the moment when I'm upset and going like, that guy just affected me, how dare he, instead of thinking of it as a negative, I think of it as a way to positively affect that person's day. Because I have no idea what's happening. That person might have made a mistake, right? They didn't see me in the blind spot. That happens. It could be that they're in a really big hurry. That happens. It could be any number of things. It could have just been that he's an asshole and wanted to get in front of me. But what effect am I making? And what responsibility do I have to take in that interaction to affect positive change? And I thought, well, it's got to be my attitude. Instead of honking my horn and getting angry and upset with him, I could have just been like, cool.
It's harder to do.
Right?
I think with veterans, that's a unique thing, because we have that aggression on the road, but it's very poignant. What actions have we done that have affected others that probably didn't even know of or even really care? We've been basically, a lot of us coming back, just basically blaze a path through without caring, literally on people's bumpers until they get out of our way, of just pushing everybody away and further away from us. That's a really, really poignant analogy in terms of inflection and reflection on what can we do action-wise that would cause ripple effects to affect others, right? So it's, in turn, you flip that around. What are the positive actions that you can put into play to affect your own mental health and life and others, instead of flipping them off or riding their bumper until they get out of the way? And you'd think it'd be safer doing that if you switched from like a car to a motorcycle. You start understanding how important it is, but I've seen riders go right on the side until they've moved cars out of the way. But that's one of those things where you do have to make that. It comes, I guess, with a little bit of experience, but self-reflection on making positive actions in your own life to positively affect yourself and others, and consistent application of that, and knowing that 1% better every day, one action positive does make a big difference. You probably don't even know the effects on how having a nice day or high-fiving someone, how that's going to affect. You can't help but feel happy after getting a high five or a smile. Like, it's just, maybe people might feel it's a little weird, but it's over time, like, it's way better than doing the opposite. So it's a good analogy, that ripple effect. I really like that.
I had I saw this comic online, and I actually shared it. It's on all my stuff, and it was like, I think it was from 22 Until None, the anti-suicide group there. Yeah. And it was two vets talking to each other, and they was like, I'm having a really bad day. And the other guy's like, okay, well, what have you done today? And he's like, nothing. Okay, well, how do you get out of this funk? You do the next right thing. It's like, think about what your best self would do right now? What's the one thing you could do as your best self? Well, I haven't had a shower in 3 days. Okay, have a shower. Right? Cool.
First thing you do
Done.
to get out of the field.
Have a shower, right? But the concept of doing the next right thing, just throughout your time period, is that concept, right? You have limited amount of interactions with people. And if every interaction they have with you is negative, then their interactions with you are going to continue to be negative. Whereas if your interactions with people are positive, they're more likely to have a positive reaction back. And even earlier when I said, when we were talking, and I said, like, if you're in a shitty mood and you walk into a room of happy people, if those people care about you, you're going to come up. If they don't care about you, you're bringing everybody down.
Yeah.
And it's very simple to to see that shift depending on your circle and the relationships you've built. And those relationships are single interactions. Each time you talk to somebody builds their perception of you. Like, you and I never actually physically met until earlier this summer. Yet we've been involved in a couple of collaborations. We've talked quite a bit. You've been on the podcast. We've been working, like, there's lots of stuff we've done together that have built our relationship that we can now utilize for these conversations without actually having ever met each other until this summer.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. And going back to the actions that influence others, I'd say for sure yourself and Grant from Honey Badger and Seb Lavoie were huge influences on me getting back on the mats. And I had a lot of justifications for not going back to the dojo. I got 3 jobs, got 2 kids, a wife. I don't got time. I made time. It's like, so I only go once a week, but it's still 2.5 hours. You do an hour of boxing, then an hour and a half of jits, but
Wicked.
you make the time, right? And I hope that in the future I'll have more time for that. It's just, things are not less busy, they're more busy, but you make the time for things that are important in your life. Family first and foremost. Same thing should be for your health. You should put yourself as a priority. It's really hard for us, I think, as soldiers to do that. And I guess not even specific to soldiers, all frontline first responders and people in general may find it hard to help themselves, to help others. That's really important to take that time. And even just getting a good night's sleep is one of those things that can be really tough when you start at the end of the night. And that's that consistent action, right? The positive action applied. Same can be discussed about positive behaviors, habits. What good habits are you putting into place to get that good sleep hygiene, to affect your mood when you wake up, to stay positive, and physical well-being? And you get thrown around the mat enough, you do whatever you can to make yourself a little bit physically more fit, or mentally, the mental acuity to be able to get yourself from being thrown or pinned or put into the guard. But it's all like relative, and it's the same actions that talk about positivity and what you choose to do. It's your choice on how you affect what goes into the actions that you take each day. Yeah.
So have you done, you know what a hitchhiker escape is?
No, I haven't gotten into that yet. We practice a few each week, but it's really tough to stay consistent with just
for sure.
Once
with only one time. Yeah,
it depends on who's teaching that night, but I'll Google that, the hitchhikers one. I've seen a few good ones.
I'll give you it's really quite simple. It's an armbar escape, and it's called a hitchhiker escape because when your arm is out like this, you take your thumb and you hitchhike it out like this.
Just grab it,
and then you roll away from it. It's a whole thing, but I really latched on to the concept of the hitchhiker escape because in an armbar escape, the idea is that you have to keep a grip. So I'm not going to let you take my arm until I want you to take my arm. So I'm making the choice, and that's what really stuck in my head was that you're not taking my arm unless I'm giving it to you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hold that grip, and then when I go to do my hitchhiker escape, I'm going to let go. And by doing that, I'm taking the initiative because you're trying to catch up. Your OODA loop is now cycling because my arm is now free to you. And
it's
I'm
like
moving.
A chess move.
Exactly.
Piece for another one.
And it is just the concept of making that choice, of you being the one to give up that arm, it's exactly what we do every day to have a better mental health as a whole, because it's in those little choices, the little things that you say to yourself. It's the self-talk. It's the AARs that you do with yourself in between those interactions with everybody. So after a roll, I usually, depending whether I won or lost, I'll be like, hey, do you got any points? Like, did I give something up there? What could I have done better? Whatever, right? And I will take that and I'll be like, okay, so by next time when I'm rolling, I need to keep my hips down when I do this particular transition, blah, 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 blah. But we don't do that very often in our own head.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to start doing in order to get physically better. When I was saying earlier, when you take that circle and you like shrink it right down, that's where you got to start, is up here, and how you talk to yourself. Because if you're continually bashing yourself, you continually putting, if you continually put others before yourself, if you continually put yourself down, and you continually degrade your own issues, because I've talked with a lot of dudes, I use dudes colloquially, a lot of people, that they'll talk to me and be like, yeah, I had this little problem where I would drink a lot and then I would get angry and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not a little problem. That's not something that is little, but it comes down to what they're telling themselves, right?
Yeah,
and it's just, it's a little thing. It's not a big deal. It's blah, 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 right? And you can't fix anything if you don't think it's a problem. So until you embrace it and say, oh, that's bad. Or I was talking to somebody else who was like, yeah, I had kind of a bad dream and then I woke up really angry and I had to go clear my nose because I was like kind of sweaty and stuff. And I was just like, that's a nightmare. That, like, you had a nightmare that woke you up. And he's like, yeah, I don't know, it wasn't real. I'm like, it was a fucking, that's a nightmare. And you need to be able to say it to yourself that I had a nightmare. When you do that, it takes the power out of the action, right? Then you have the initiative. You said, here's my arm, and you can move. It's that, it's you're making the choice.
Yeah.
And it starts up here, and then your OODA loop needs to cycle, and then you go, okay, what do I need to do next?
Yeah, it
and
definitely starts up there, and then it needs to be, it's a two-part thing, right? So you have that mindset, then it has to take place in terms of action and execution, and then refinement, just like setting that hitchhiker's armbar. You can look at it all you want in the videos, and I do take a look at a lot of different techniques, but when I go to practice it, the body isn't quite there. Even worse for boxing, like I'll get punched in the face and like that did not go as expected. And, you know, it's a little bit, the muscle memory's better for the jiu-jitsu than it is for the sparring. But it's the same thing. So execution, and then, you know, no good plan survives first contact with the enemy, but it's that refinement and preparation, and also that mindset, having that warrior mindset attitude, that positivity, but doing everything, putting everything into place and taking that action plan, but also being adaptable on the fly to accommodate those things that are outside your control, but keeping that positive attitude and mindset. And all good operators have a great sense of humor, mostly because you have to. Like, it's the best way to deal with the shit that just comes that's unexpected. So
there's times where it's so messed up, all you can do is laugh.
Yeah.
I remember walking through one of those canals in Afghanistan, and the water didn't look that deep. I thought it was going to be like mid-calf, and I'm a tall guy, right? So I'm thinking, okay, mid-calf should be all right. And I step in, it's right to my knee, first step, and I'm like, oh no.
Hit the old green ravine.
Yeah, and as I was walking in deeper, it kept getting higher up, and the other guys that were in the water, obviously shorter than me, were like waist high, and I'm feeling it trickle on the bottom of my balls. I was like, oh god, I don't want it in there. But I could. There was nothing to do but laugh, and in the moment, you're just like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
This is happening.
Don't do that tea water.
Oh, it's just, it's so bad right now. But the again, the key, I think, in all of this is just being aware of the fact that you're affecting people around you. And I tell this to my kids all the time, which are the ultimate ripple machine, because they're gonna set they're just going to set shit on fire. Sometimes literally, sometimes not literally, but like they are chaos incarnate, and they will just do things because they have no concept of how things are going to affect anybody else. They've never had to think about that way. And so I liken my kids to being like the ultimate test of
patience.
If you want to test your patience, sure. You want to test your physicality, they're going to test that too. If you want to test like whatever you want to test, they have one written down for you. You can they'll sort you out.
Yeah, it's one of those unique things. They're just cute enough not to kill, but it's probably like for me, therapeutic wise, having a daughter was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. To just make that little black heart beat a little bit more again. It brought it back to life, and there's a lot of things I think were dead inside me that were woken back up. And with a son and a father, I think there's a lot of. The problem is that you want them to be just like you or exceed your expectations of you, so it's hard to like be soft on them. You don't want them to be soft, and then the daughter just rolls in and gets whatever she wants, and she just takes it anyways. So it's not like we can stop her. But having kids is one of those things that I would never have imagined being overseas, and not even think I'd make it to my 30th birthday. And then the idea, the concept of where I'd be now, never would have figured it in a million years. But it's definitely been something where I've been in some dark places that's pulled me back up, and the accountability of what we run with Mad Hatter Industries and that code of conduct keeps you going, and it's a sense of purpose and reason and mission. And the same is with all the members in our community. We all look up to each other for different things, and often reach out to each other for assistance and guidance and help. And there's a lot of good mentorship out there for those that do want to stick out the path and make that their full-time commitment. The path is lit before you. Certainly there's different steps for each folks, but there's definitely the help that's out there, the resources. It's better than ever, I think.
Yeah. And I think really understanding that it's your path. It's such a huge leap for a lot of people to not compare yourself to anyone else, to not compare your struggles with anybody else's. And I mean, I've heard this so many times of people saying, oh, I had some trauma. It wasn't as bad as yours, but, I had some trauma. And I'm like,
trauma's trauma.
Man, trauma's trauma. I don't give a shit. If it's affecting you, it's bad. Therefore, we need to fix it. Like, let's do what we need to do to get through it. And there's stuff sorry, as I knock my shit over, there's stuff that I've done that I think is nonchalant. And I've talked about this a few times with a bunch of other vets, is that when you talk to different trades about each other, about what you've done, usually everyone's sitting there going like, you did what? And I'm talking about it like it's nothing. And then I listen to what you did, and I'm like, are you friggin' nuts? And you're like, it's just,
it's all perspective.
Yeah. And trauma is very big on that. Like, we have to be able to say, trauma affected me this way. This is my path forward. This is how, and, if it takes me 2 years to get to where I'm healthy enough to pass that knowledge on, okay. If it takes you 5, okay. If it takes you 6 months, okay, cool. Like, who cares?
Really, it's pertinent. You mentioned like the audience and who some people, depending on the story that you tell, react differently. I often have to remind myself when I'm talking to people that haven't been to Afghanistan that it's not normal, the things we went through. When I calmly talk about like the first scene where we had to deal with like 30 bodies with the triage and just sorting through who was dead and who wasn't, and like when I talk about casually that there's an arm there or a torso across the road that we drove to park and set up like just a perimeter, sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, oh wait, like I might be traumatizing these people with these stories, and like the subtle humor of like, oh yeah, well the G-Wagon was fine because they managed to duck in time, but the suicide bomber wasn't, and they're not laughing when I'm telling them the story, and they're just like, I don't think they got the delivery of my joke right. Maybe I did it wrong, but it's just like sometimes you realize, well, maybe that is a little bit, fucked
beyond their comprehension. I heard, I read this statistic. I don't know how accurate it is, but I read the statistic, and it was like the average civilian in North America will have maybe 1 or 2 critical incidences in their entire life where they're dealing with life and death situation, and that's like maybe 1 or 2. The average police officer deals with like 200 in their career, in a 20-year career, something like that, right?
Services, firefighters, it's in
firefighters,
they deal with
military, all these, like and we come from a place, as you were saying earlier, why I think we have so much to offer to the population is the fact that the critical instances that we had to deal with, we didn't see them as critical because we were thinking they were going to be far worse, because we'd been training on far worse, right? And you know as well as I do that the best way to train is worst case scenario and then work your way back from there. Right?
Yeah, prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Exactly. And but the average citizen, that's not their life, and it's really up to us, as you said, to kind of manage the bubble, right? So you don't go into gory details with the random civilian at the bus about their time in Afghanistan. That's not gonna be
it gets awkward real quick when you start talking
Yeah.
about a few like just crazy stories. They ended up stepping on someone's eyeball or the tendon of it, or they just
exactly.
all of a sudden it's like there's something that changes in like the tempo of the audience.
The air changes completely. You're like, what just happened there? But it's true, and that goes back to what we were saying about those little interactions, right? Is that if you're aware that you are affecting the people around you, then you can start to see that. And as you start to talk about the super funny shit that happened to you overseas, you start to realize that nobody's laughing.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't that funny.
Maybe it's not as funny as I think it is, or maybe it's only funny to these particular
the people that were there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. One of those had to be their moments.
Yeah, like this old beach bath.
Yeah.
For the boots before you go to lunch sort of deal.
See, and I'm laughing because it's hilarious, because I know what it's like.
Yeah,
the average person, like...
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck's wrong with these people? But,
yeah, exactly.
You know, we all speak the same language dependent on our interests. Like, if you ride, everyone understands the hardships of going out in the rain for a couple hours, or almost getting belted with a little bit of hail, or getting just thrown repeatedly by that overzealous white belt, or that black belt that's pulled out a new move that he's been watching. So.
Or being the demo guy, and you just like get everyone, they're like, yeah, I need to see that again. Can you give me the detail on that mirror? And you're just like,
yeah. The same guy that asks if you need to bring your gas mask. That's the guy. Or a combat helmet on the range. Yeah,
that was me. I was that guy.
I was always like, one, like now we're wearing it. So.
Yeah. I was. Anytime they asked, like, "You okay, FFO?" and I'm like, "Does that include my gas mask?" And they're like, "Does now."
Yeah.
But yeah. So again, I really appreciate you chatting with me on this, because I've had this kind of stuck in my head for the last few days, and I really wanted to get your take on it, because this is what MHI is doing, right? You guys are creating a bubble. You're creating your area of influence that you're affecting the people around you in a very positive manner. And I see a lot of the people that are involved, everyone's just getting better, which is awesome. This is, again, the same thing I was talking about with the Veteran Renaissance in our last podcast. Was it? If I want to be better and you want to be better, then we will both push each other to be better. And then somebody else will see that we want to be better. And then, oh, hey, I want to be better too. And then we'll just...
Yeah, that's definitely what it's about, that building that foundation. It's also like an onion as well. Like, there's inner circles of different specialties and certain challenges. Like, we're going on one right now for 75 days. Not everyone is doing it, but it's teach their own. Everyone's doing their own thing, but has their own interests as well that we help to, you want to put seeds and watch them grow in different areas and water them and ensure that they get the right amount of sunlight and help that they need. And it's not an individual effort. It's always group-based approach, but it's never pushing anyone to do anything they don't want. They do it on their own time. Not everyone's as active either. So it's just, but the consistency on being positive and open and encouraging others to do their best and find what they love is really that's key, and what it's about. That's part of the finding and that pursuit of mental health and mental wealth, getting there. Like that's basically unlocking that key there, and it's not the same. People are going to love doing different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another. I'm going to throw out a shameless plug here, but it's another hammer on the iron, right? Like if you ever seen a Japanese like katana being made?
Yeah, like you see the old samurai movies, and you're like, that's pretty badass.
Yeah. So if there's actually there's videos of like people doing it nowadays, and they still use the traditional way of doing things, but usually when they're trying to draw the blade out, when they're trying to extend it, they usually have 3 people working the iron. So they're like, there's the master who's sitting there, fires it, and then he brings it out, and he'll hammer. And so you get that ting, 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 like when we can create walking or talking fire, right, where your guns are always going, but you're still conserving ammo. It's that same thing. You just, I could sit there and hammer on this iron for a while, and you see it and you're like, wow, that's going to be cool. I'm going to come help. And then you can step in, and then I can use less force because I'm hitting it half as much, but we're still getting the same draw out. We add another person. You can increase the draw out with less work between each person. Yeah,
fighting the load.
Exactly, sharing that load. And it, in terms of mental health, which is so important, is that you're capable of sharing the load. And the more people that you're sharing the load with, the easier it gets, because you can hear from other people. You can hear from, from Corey Hatt, and this was my experience, and this is Chance Burles, and this is his experience, and this is Steb Lavoie, and this is his experience, and they're all similar, but they're coming from different angles, and they're learning different skills, and they're learning different things.
Yeah.
So,
but the same intent is getting folks to get out and help themselves and get that help. Like staying inside by yourself in the basement in the dark is not the cure. It's not the fix.
Nope. But yeah, it really does. It takes a village. I think I've heard that many times.
You need sentinels watching out for each other.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, I gave a speech at the recent Veterans Voice of Canada, the Flags of Remembrance.
Yeah.
Down at Sylvan Lake, and I was giving a speech, and I said that, talking about remembrance was that living a good life every day is how we remember those that gave their lives in service of it.
We owe it.
And exactly, we owe it to live a good life. But that doesn't mean that your good life is the same as mine. And that I had the point, and then I completely lost it. But anyway, we'll cut it short on that. I'm going to read this quote again because it's so excellent, and then we can I'll give you a chance to tell us about what's coming down the pipe in terms of Mad Hatter, and then we'll go from there. So here we go. Thinking about what we have talked about over the last hour, listen to it now. Objective judgment, now at this very moment. Unselfish action, now at this very moment. Willing acceptance, now at this very moment, of all external events. That's all you need. From Marcus Aurelius. That was written 2,000 years ago, something like that.
Still pertinent today.
Absolutely.
It takes 100%. The worry out, doesn't it? When if there's no questioning what you should be doing, just the actions that need to be taken, it's a lot easier. You know deep down what you should be doing. And that's really how that quote impacts me.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, it's just it's a validation, right, of the mission that we're all a part of, the help that we hope to achieve by those actions that we take, and that we're helping others, and that mission is pure, and the intention is that's what it hits. And then you can't control the outcome per se, but you can certainly move and try and change your angles to get to the outcome that needs to be done. But it's to each their own. Everything's unique.
Absolutely. Which makes it interesting.
Yeah. Well, everyone has a different way of going about it too, but
Yep.
well, we're talking what's coming up for Mad Hatter Industries. So we just wrapped up an event yesterday at Blackbridge Harley Davidson. I connected with a veteran that works there, an American veteran, and really passionate and interested in the Canadian community for veterans. And I think what you're going to see is some developments coming out of there in Ontario. It's going to be, I think, a new bastion for veterans. And I'm certainly passionate and fired up about the advocacy on getting out there, getting that wind therapy, getting on a machine or a horse, just something for yourself, getting out there and doing it for yourself. But anything I can do to connect veterans with those like-minded individuals. And I think that's something you're going to see coming down the pipe. We have a lot of good partners with us and mentors, like Arrowhead Coffee has always been in the background helping out. And I think you're really starting to see them take a big leadership role, particularly from Lane and Jody. They've always been in the veteran community. They both served together at one point and then went different paths. So it's really been great having their mentorship, but also partnering up with them for certain things. The next week we're picking up 2 new designs that we're dropping. On the 16th, we have a full fall catalog coming out, which is really going to be next level. Like the photography and video we put together for this is going to be something to watch out for, and we're teasing that out next Saturday. We're at Durham Harley Davidson doing their last event of the year. Huge pop-up tent. We're going to have Monster Energy there with the stunt team. Highway Heathens are going to be there. It's going to be pretty awesome. And for anyone that's in the Ontario and Durham region, something to check out. But the new designs are going to be something that we always try to raise the bar, right? We're always doing more and trying to continue on that trajectory of improvement. I think these designs are going to speak for themselves and also raise some questions about the darker side of mental health when things are neglected and not taken where they should and treated well by others. Then there's consequences and actions. And I think you'll see some of those being drawn out in these new designs. And there's 2 that I'm really excited for that'll be dropping first. So anybody that comes out on Saturday will be able to get to see that. But in the meantime, you can sign up for the newsletter as well. And those will be teased out next weekend. So a lot of cool things coming. And then probably a collaboration design in the works. Something to do with what we're discussing today. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. I've been thinking about figuring something out for the podcast. See if we can't get a shirt involved. And I think you and I, now that we've actually connected on this, is going to be outstanding. It's going to be outstanding.
Probably one of the things I think is the coolest part is getting those designs from concept, drawing it out to production, and seeing how that turns out, and then on to the chests of individuals, the front line of mental health, those battling their own battles and helping others. But it's really cool to see that take from concept to action. It's one of the coolest things. That's one of the things we get to do with Mad Hatter Industries.
Yeah, no doubt. One of my biggest struggles has always been taking the images in my head and how do I get that communicated to somebody else.
Yeah.
Especially for artists and in many of my tattoos and everything, it's always been very difficult to like what I want versus what it's going to look like on the medium, and then taking the expert's advice from there and going, is that going to work or not? Or both.
It's an art.
It really is, and it's super fascinating. This is why I like being involved in it, just but from the side. I'm not an artist.
Yeah. No, everyone has inside. I think everyone has this potential for creativity, and it's just harnessed in different things. Like look at Chris from MIEH. He's been designing things for Corporal for Life, and a lot of people may not know that, but it's come out more now in the posts. But he's been huge influence with everything. He does typical Navy, right? He just does everything. Jack of all trades. He could design his own bathing suit. He's building stuff out of leather. He was somebody I talked to when I was having issues with silk screening, when I was having too thick of a run or wasn't getting the print that I needed. The guy just knows everything. So it's just incredible that the talent that's out there and that passion and creativity and pride in craft.
Yep. it's mind blowing, really. That's why I keep talking about the veteran renaissance, right? Like, there's so many skill sets and so many different creative outlets that are coming out of nowhere. Sometimes people have been doing this stuff for years, and they have just making some absolutely cool, some of the coolest stuff I've seen in the last couple of years, and some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. So I'm really excited for this next decade or so of things that are going to happen, because we got some awesome stuff down the pipe, and I'm excited. It's going to be awesome. So we've been rolling for just a little bit over an hour now, and I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I know it was short notice, and I really appreciate you being able to jump on and talk about this. You were the first person I thought of when I thought of this topic. And the ripple effect is the perfect way to put it. The area of influence, the whatever you want to call it, your bubble. It's very important to be aware of, and we can affect a lot of change with it in a very positive manner. So again, thank you for coming on, and I can't say how much I appreciate it. It's awesome for you.
Well, yeah, it's my honor and privilege, and like I said, you're doing some amazing work. Those stories need to be told, and these podcasts are that medium. Where we have that in the past used to be the campfire where you'd have the NCMs get together and tell the next generation of warriors, even get those old warriors working through their own issues. This is a really important thing to do, and I'm very appreciative of the work that you do. And, out west, I'm going to have to get out there for a visit eventually. So,
I'm going to take you up hunting in the mountains.
Yeah.
Show you real mountains.
Yeah, well, I've been. I did my last work up in Edmonton. We spent a lot of time going to Banff on the weekends. I did an ice climbing course in Canmore. A lot of the guys are still out there, and then you got Dylan just got out there from Walk for the Wounded. So there's going to be a lot of good things coming up from the West, but certainly way more connected now with the ability of the media we have in this day and age. We're definitely in a veteran renaissance.
It's pretty outstanding. I'm, again, like I said, super excited. All right, brother. Thank you again. We'll talk to you soon.
Right on. Appreciate it.
That concludes this episode of The Toolbox. I want to thank you for listening. I hope you were able to use some of the information that was offered. I want to thank all those putting it on the line for us every day. Military, veterans, first responders, and public servants. Keep up the good work. I look forward to bringing you more tools for your toolbox. And until next time, stay open, stay humble, and stay focused. Chimo.